Just come.
So very good evening, members, friends and guests of TPS. Another glorious evening today. We have the most gracious presence of our legendary person and a massive personality like Ashok Dilwali with us. And we have requested and he has kindly consented to show us the second part of the Himalayas and also some uh, exotic locations he has photographed during the 40 years of non-Himalayas photographs. And with this introduction, I will hand it over to Sri Arvind Chetji. He will introduce or have a few words about Ashokji. And over to you, Arvind.
Thank you, Chanmaru. Good evening, everyone.
Good evening.
One of the privileges of being in an official position on TPS is that you get the honor of knowing and introducing people like Ashok Dilwali, sir. He's such a, I think we all know who he is. I don't think he needs an introduction. He's come here last time and he's back here again because, for one, his body of work is so humongous and so beautiful. That it's not possible to finish in 1 or 2 meetings also. So he's agreed to do the second meeting with us. Very grateful to him for that. And almost all the members who attended the meeting last time and the non-members have come away with a feeling of awe and happiness from his last talk. So we are looking forward to his next talk, and which is going to be happening now. Before we start that, I'd like to compliment young Aditya, not the Kulkarni, who's been doing some pictures of toys, and he's taken things forward. Congratulations, Aditya, you're on the right track. I'd like you to do it a little more and work a little more harder so that you inspire people like me to pick up my camera and start shooting again. So I'm hoping that you'll inspire a lot of other people also to get back into photography. Thank you all, and without much ado, I'd like to hand it over to Ashokji. Ashokji, over to you, sir. We are looking forward to your talk and presentation, and all yours.
Good evening to all my friends. I am most grateful to all my friends in Telangana Photographic Society for giving me this opportunity to give my presentation this time. Again, second time, it's a great honor. I acknowledge it with all the humility from within. Sir, I would like to begin with this introduction that Himalayas, no doubt, are extremely beautiful and they're the pride of our country. But at the same time, I would not like to belittle other places in our country. They also have their own beauty, and they also deserve to be shown. And whatever little I've seen of my country and wherever I have been charmed by those areas also. And here I requested Telangana Photographic Society officials that if I have your permission, I would like to show some areas like Rajasthan, Karnataka, Kerala, all those places which I have seen, not very exhaustively like Himalayas, but yes, I've been there and always gone with my camera. So I take your permission to start the thing, and if we can start the picture, I'll give a little background about those pictures, and then if there are any question and answer, I'll be very happy to answer those questions. Let's begin. Yes.
Thank you.
Ladakh is famous for its monasteries. It is dotted with several. Well, this picture. As you know, Ladakh is dotted with several monasteries where Buddhists are there in large numbers, and they are very religious and devoted people. And wherever I've been, I've photographed several deities which are there in these monasteries. And not only Indians, but the foreigners who come to our country to visit Ladakh, they are charmed by these beautiful deities there. And I remember when I was photographing this one, I don't know for what reason I took off my watch there and I was taking the picture. And when I left, I forgot my watch there. And after we had gone about 5 or 6 kilometers away, then I remembered, oh my God, I forgot my watch there. So we rushed back there, and sure enough, my watch was there. So this particular thing I remember because of that, how I forgot to pick up my watch there. Thank you. Next. This is a very favorite picture of mine, taken from the top of a temple called Surkanda Devi. The temple is devoted to Devi, Surkanda Devi. And for this temple, there's a slight climb of about 2 kilometers. And there's a place called Kadukhal between Mussoorie and Chamba. So you have to leave your car at Kadukhal and then walk 2 kilometers up. And from there, you can see Nanda Devi main, east, and this big thing, this is Trishul. And in between, you can see Nanda Court also. And on the right side, that is Nanda Gunti. And it's taken early in the morning. So I left my place very early so that I wanted to catch sunrise view from Surkanda Devi. And there must have been some clouds on the sides, though they obstructed the sun, and there's a beam of light in the valley. And there's a little bit of scattered clouds that made my picture. Thank you. Next one. This was my first trip to Ladakh. I hired a taxi from Srinagar and went to Leh. And first night we were supposed to stay at a place called Dras, which is the second coldest inhabited place in India. And at Dras, when we were about to reach Dras, I saw this small hill covered with the shadow of the clouds. And it just struck me as a good composition. And the clouds dancing over the scene made my picture. And somebody called it black magic, this picture. Next. There's a famous Rohtang Pass in Kulu Valley. Once you cross Rohtang Pass, that's about 13,500 feet. Then you enter Lahaul. So at this place, Lahaul and Rohtang Pass, it's always advisable to leave very early in the morning from Manali. It's only 55 kilometers, but if you go in tourist season, you have to wait for a long time because there's a huge rush of tourists. And I remember on one of my trips, I had to wait for 5 hours because of the traffic jam there on Rohtang Pass. And this was shot in color, but I converted into black and white. I think the side light is what made this picture. High altitude diners, I call it. Next, please. This again taken in Lahaul, and kind of an abstract picture where there was a pond of water there, and these rocks with the reflection. I like the reflection in the still waters, kind of a abstract. I love to photograph abstract images, and this is one of those abstract ones. Many I've shot, but I like the reflection in the still water, like a mirror there, a mirror kind of mirror image. Next, please. You see, whenever I go to Leh, I've been to Ladakh 18 times, and I prefer to go in winters because it's much more photogenic in winters as compared to summer months. So I never go in summer months now. So this was one of the, and whenever I go there, I always take a drive from Leh to Kargil and either come back same day or spend a night in Kargil and start next day, early morning back to Leh. So this gentlemen there in Kargil, and they are all Shia Muslims, and this was taken just I liked his face, very rugged face. Thank you. Let's next. This I shot in Bellevue, where my daughter lives. sorry, no, sorry, no, sorry, not in Bellevue. This was in Manali. Sorry, Kausani. And early morning, this was. I thought there'll be nothing, no light because of such thick clouds. But sure enough, there was a little bit of light. That light, it can come into that category of minimalism, where you have very little of the subject matter, and that makes it a little powerful. I like the approach of dawn here. Next. This is a temple called Tungnath, devoted to Lord Shiva. In Garhwal, there are 5 temples collectively known as Panch Kedar. Panch means 5 in Sanskrit. So this is the highest temple. The irony is that the highest temple has the easiest approach in these. And the toughest is Rudranath. The 5 temples are Kedarnath, Kalpeshwar, Madhumeshwar, Tungnath, Rudranath. And this I went there in first week of April, and on previous night, it snowed. There was a mild snowfall, and it took, instead of those 3 kilometers, took 4 hours for us to reach cover it, because every step we were going, it was knee-deep snow, and it took a lot of effort to reach that place. I remember I went with my friend Anil Madan, my class fellow from school, and we both enjoyed this trek a lot. Next. This is in Kangla Valley. There's a fun picture. In the background, you have those Dhauladars. Dhauladar range separates Kangla Valley from Chamba Valley. And this is the demarcation. And long time back in 83, I think, I crossed from Kangla side to Chamba. It was about 5 days trek, and through a place called Minkyani Pass. And this picture I shot at a temple called Baijnath, again devoted to Lord Shiva. And I is standing as a watchdog, not watchdog, but a watch monkey. Next, please. This is again another deity in Ladakh. Somebody told me, I think I was told this called Tara Devi, perhaps. You see, in Hinduism and Buddhism, there are common gods, but they have different names. And same god, but they have a different name. Like, I was just reading a book on Buddhism, that there I learned that they have the same gods and goddesses, but with different names. So this is one of them. Next, please. Next, please. This is a very interesting picture. I was preparing myself to go to Kailash Mansarovar in 96. We went in the month of August. So to prepare myself physically, I went to a place called Tapovan, and Delhi was boiling those days with the temperatures of 44, 45. And when I was packing, I just reluctantly put one full sleeve sweater and one light sleeping bag. I think because it was so hot, I just couldn't stand the sight of those woolens in the Delhi heat. But when I pitched my tent here and at Tapovan, this is Tapovan is 3 kilometers above Gaumukh, and at night there was a snowfall. And I remember this was one of the most uncomfortable nights I ever had, because I was shivering in that one sweater and when very light sleeping bag. But in the morning, the weather cleared and I photographed the first rays of sun falling on this beautiful mountain, Shivling. I must say one thing about Shivling, this peak. It is not very high. It's only about 25,000 or something, 25 something. But it's a very technical peak. And I learned from my mountaineering friends that it's much more difficult than Everest. And technically, very few people can have the courage to go to Shivling. But Everest is not so difficult as compared to this. Although the height is so less, but it's a very difficult peak. Thank you. Next. This was when I started the trek for the view of Kailash in Tibet. And it was in the month of June, I mean. And because previous year in the month of August, my trip was a bad trip because there was a flood in the river Brahmaputra. They called Trangpo. So there was no ferry, and we had to return back without a view of Kailash. Then I was very disappointed. I told my travel agent who was traveling with me, I said, look, I spent 66,000 rupees and it's gone waste. We can't do anything. He said, Mr. Dilwale, if you want, I can arrange 50% discount for you. You pay only 33,000 next year, and I promise you to take you in Kailash. You come in the month of June. Okay, I said, I'll come with you 100%. I'll come. So next year I went, and when on way to that place called Darjan, all my companions who had come from Kathmandu to Nepal, they were all sick because of high altitude problem. Only me and the travel agent, we were fit enough to go, but they said, you go, but you come back from first halt, that was Dirapuk. So you said, you go to Dirapuk and you come back. So when we went to Dirapuk, from there I got a very beautiful view of north face of Kailash. And behind this is Kailash, the west face. So I like this pattern of snow out and granite, and that's it. And I think, sorry, can you go back a little? One thing I must mention about this place, that when I was 5 years old, my parents left India for 6 months holiday, long vacation, and we were being looked after by my maternal grandfather and maternal grandmother. And at night, before putting us to sleep, my Nanaji, my maternal grandfather, used to tell us stories, and only then we would go to sleep. And one story I always remembered, he said that in Tibet, there is a place called Kailash, Mansarovar. Kailash is the famous mountain, and in Mansarovar, there are swans swans live there, and they only eat pearls there. So this was stuck in my mind for a long time. local people in their dress. And of course, they were a little shy. You can see the shy expression on this lady. And with the traditional dress. This was October 94. Next, please. This is a panorama of Kanchenjunga Massif. And if you remember the 100 rupee notes, which are not in circulation now, which were there earlier, and at the back side of that notes, there used to be a picture of this Kanchenjunga Massif. And this has been taken from a place called Tiger Hill in West Bengal, it's near Darjeeling. To see the sunrise, people have to get up at 2:30 or 3, and it's about 1 hour's drive to that place, Tiger Hill. And the place is crowded all the time with tourists, and it's very cold. But when the sunrise happens, you get a beautiful view. Then I waited a little bit longer so that the lower peaks were also covered with sun. So this is a Kanchenjunga Massif. Next, please. This in the background you have Panchachuli. Pancha means 5 and Chuli means earth. It is according to mythology, Hindu mythology, Pandavas went to heaven after climbing these 5 peaks. They climbed heaven from here. And Panchuli, they said each Pandav prepared his own meal there under each hearth there, and that's why it's called Panchachuli. But I shot this one at dawn, and I climbed a little hill near Chowpuri to get this one, to get this river of clouds below in the bottom, and you can see the sun it's about to come up from there, from the dawn, from east side. Next, please. See, I have, like all nature photographers, almost all, I have great fascination for photographing clouds. Maybe one day I end up with a book on clouds. These are cirrus clouds. They are very high, and I combine the clouds with this tree of rhododendron flowers. And because clouds by themselves don't make much meaning, but if they can be combined with something, some tree or some hill, then it looks better. So I shot this. Next, please. Without this figure, this is in Kangra Valley. This is my friend, Mr. Manmohan Singh Baba. He's a famous writer, and I was working on my first book on Himachal. So we were going to every place, wherever we came to know that such a place is there. We went to so many places, just exploring what can be good for our book. And he wrote the text for that book, and I took the pictures. And His Holiness the Dalai Lama gave a foreword for this book. And in the backdrop you can see Dhauladhar Mountains. This was in the winters, and those are wheat crop. I think that's wheat, yes. This is Changpa, they are shepherds. It was near Neoma in Ladakh. And I took some pictures of him along with the sheep also, but I wanted a close-up. So it's always good to photograph people also there, then you associate what kind of people live in those areas. So this was one of the they have a very tough life. It's very cold in all the places where they live. Next, please. This is Nanda Devi. Sunrise I shot from Ollie. Ollie is famous for skiing in winters. And what happens at Ollie is sun rises from behind the peak. And this morning, when I shot this, I was lucky to have a cloud hovering over the peak. And when the sun came up, it lighted up the clouds. So because of this play of light, I think I got my picture because of that. And I have been very fortunate whenever I have photographed Nanda Devi, I have always got something interesting. I consider some special blessings of this goddess on me. I never taken a video. Yeah, this one again in Ladakh, a few two cheerful, interesting faces. You can see it's very cold. They covered their heads with scarves, woolen scarves. Next, please. This is the 14th tallest peak in the world. There are only 14 peaks like that above 8,000 meters. They are called 8,000ers. This is called Shisha Pangma, and this one I photographed when I was going to Kailash Mansarovar, and it is considered the easiest peak to climb among the 14 tall ones. I'm not a climber, but that's what I've heard, and I like the composition, the light, play of light, and the clouds. Next, please. Well, I think the place of identity of this place, I cannot disclose. This was in the inner line in Ladakh, and what I liked was I shot it in color, but I converted into black and white. I liked it more in black and white because of this formation of clouds. And now I shoot mostly such scenes with infrared, which I hope to show you some infrared. And I have got two cameras for infrared photography. One is a standby, but this was the ordinary color slide converted into black and white. But infrared gives much more dramatic effect, even than this, much more than this. Next, please. This was again in Tibet, and the sand dunes place was full of sand dunes and beautiful formation of landscapes. And what I did, normally we were driven by those Chinese drivers, and they used to get irritated if I requested, can you stop the vehicle? I want to take a picture. They were never obliging. They were little disgruntled that why should I waste time for this guy to take a photograph. Then I was told that if you go next year in 97, take a lot of cigarettes with you. And whenever you want a picture, just offer him one cigarette and kind of a bribe. I gave him a bribe of cigarette, and I was able, he would stop the thing. Very often I would just not even get out of the vehicle and just shoot from the vehicle itself. Otherwise, they won't stop without that cigarette. When I think of this picture, always think of the one cigarette that I got. This picture because of the cigarette. Next, please. As I mentioned, I go to Kargil on every trip from there. On this one, when we were going to Kargil, I was with my friend, Mr. Pawan Jedka. He's a very good friend of mine. We went to Kargil. We spent the night in Kargil, and the weather was good. It was clear. It was sunny. But overnight, the weather changed, and when we were coming back to Leh, it started snowing. And at this place, Budh Kharbu, we had breakfast. We stopped for breakfast there. And when we were having breakfast, I shot this. I like the trees. And later on, when Bill Gates wrote one book, The Road Ahead, I thought, why not give this title book, this picture, the title, The Road Ahead, what Bill Gates had written in this book. Next, please. I'd mentioned that my love for photographing clouds, and clouds, if you can combine something with something, then it puts little life into the picture. Otherwise, it becomes too abstract if you have just the clouds. So I found this weird tree that I combined with the clouds. Next, please. This again has a very interesting story. We were invited by me and my wife. We were invited by a very dear friend of mine, Brigadier Ashok Hebe. He's from my school, but quite junior to me. And he was posted there at Kupwara. So he said, why don't you come, Ashok, you come and spend some time with us. So we were a little reluctant to go because that's a hotbed of, this. So, but we took a chance. But unfortunately, I never got a single picture on that trip. Not a single good picture. So when we took a flight back, I was lucky to get these aerial shots of Pir Panjal, because Kashmir Valley is between Pir Panjal and Greater Himalayas. So when the plane was going, I first photographed the Pir Panjal, then I photographed the Greater Himalayas on the other side. And this one I liked because of the clouds, low clouds, and Pir Panjal range. It looked nice in black and white also, but I think black color is better in this one. Next, please. In Sikkim, there's a place called lake called Changu Lake, and they have this Tibetan prayer flags, and this yak. Tourists come and they get a joyride over this yak, and here yak is under the prayer flags. I don't know whether he's praying for more tourists or less tourists, because more tourists will mean more work for him, more burden. Thank you. Next, please. This is Simla, the capital of Himachal Pradesh. This is a very nostalgic place for me, because my late father, Mr. B.K. Dilwali, began his photographic career in Simla in 1929. On the top, you can see Jaku, the statue of Lord Hanuman. And you can see full moon there. And Simla has been growing ever since. My first trip memories of Simla are of 1953. And I was only 9 years old. And Simla has great, as I said, my great memories for me. Out of our 6 siblings, 4 are Simla born. My late elder brother, then my late elder sister, then 2 of my sisters. They're all 4 are Simla born. Me and my younger sister, they're only born in Delhi, but 4 siblings, they're Simla born, because my father worked in Simla for 3 months in summer. He had a studio there, 2 studios in fact, and then in winters he used to come down to Delhi. So next, please. This is a place. This I shot from a place called Kalpa in the district of Kinnaur in Himachal Pradesh. This peak is called Jorkanden, and next to that is Kinnar Kailash. That's in India also. We have 5 Kailash peaks, but the main peak is in Tibet. But we have 5 small peaks, smaller than the Tibet, that peak. They are also in India, and this peak stands next to Kinnar Kailash in Kinnaur, but this is taller. So I shot this in the evening at dusk time. Sunset. And it's a very beautiful peak. It looks like Kailash, but people confuse it with Kailash. But I was also not sure, because this resembles a lot with the Kailash of Tibet. But I was told that this is not Kailash, this is Jorkanden. Kailash is the peak next to that one. Next, please. This is a very interesting picture of mine. This was taken in 1979. I was roaming around a village called Nadi, which is on the outskirts of McLeodganj. And all of a sudden it started raining. So I took shelter in this cottage there. And I was just checking my camera. It was a film era in 79. I saw that the number is about 35. There was only 1 or 2 frames left. I said, let's change the film, because suppose I get some subject, I would like to shoot 5 or 6 pictures. So while I was changing the film, putting in the new film, this cute little girl was observing me, what I was doing. And after I had loaded the camera with the new film, I looked at her and found a very interesting face, a very cute face. So the moment I raised my camera to take her picture, she shied away and she turned her face this side. And in 79, she was about 7 or 8 years old, maybe young, 6. So now 79 and now 2021. If you add all those, do the maths, she'll be about between 45 and 50. that village is no more there. It has been overtaken by small hotels and all. But I always call it the Nadi girl. The village is called Nadi. And I like the smile on this cute girl. Next, please. This is, of course, the Kedarnath temple. I think most visited Kedarnath Lord Shiva temple in Garhwal, Himalaya. And in the backdrop, you can see Kedarnath peak and Kedar Dome. The two peaks are also named after Kedar, and this is Kedarnath temple. Next, please. This is Kalpeshwar, another Lord Shiva temple, and the name should have been included in
And
this
in the
one.
year, which
Yeah.
year?
I visited long time back, but now I believe they have decorated it better and done some renovation because the deity is deep inside the cave there, but it was taken in that I forget the name of the valley there. Next, please. This is taken in a place called Spiti, which is there is a Lahore and Spiti. There are two places in that district, and this is the headquarters of Spiti, place called Kaza. And as I said, that there are a lot of monasteries there in Ladakh, in Lahore and Spiti. So I like the contrast very much. This the top portion of this monastery and the snow peaks in the back. This is the east face of Panchachuli, as I showed, and this was a 4 days trek, 2 days coming and 2 days going back. And I was with an army expedition, and this person is Major Thien, HS Thien, and they were doing some adventure sports. They wanted to climb, but they had an accident. So one person died there. After that, the expedition was abandoned. So I went with them, and they said we would like to photograph, like I have a photograph of this adventure sports with the backdrop of the hills of this Panchachuli. So nothing more. On my way to Kailash Mansarovar, we had to halt at a place called Prayang. And in the evening, I saw this beautiful baby rainbow. There was overcast, there was clouds there. I don't know from where sun rays came and then gave me this. And again, I asked this boy to come and stand there so that it gives a little scale to the picture if you have a human being. Although my guru of gurus, Ansel Adams, never had any human being in his portraits, in his landscapes. But sometimes it's good to put human being to give an idea of the scale of the landscape. Next, please. This is again a very interesting face I shot in Kargil. We can call it Aladdin and his magic lamp. He's shining his lamp. Maybe some jinn will come out after this. Next, please. This is a place called Kalamuni Top. When you go to Munsiari, there's a high point called Kalamuni, and there's a temple dedicated to Shiva there. And it had gone there in winters. So when I was coming back from the temple, I saw this beautiful pink glow on the snow, and moonrise had happened. And with this tree, I found this. Especially there's this pink glow on the white snow made a very interesting visual for me. Next, please. This is, I said, in Ladakh, if you go in winters, many rivers are frozen, some are fully frozen, some are semi-frozen. And here I photographed, you can see the abstract ice on the small river. And you can see the abstract kind of a photograph. Next, please. So now we come to non-Himalaya picture. This is a place called Bodh Gaya, where Lord Buddha attained enlightenment, and the place was loaded with Tibetan prayer flags. I thought that this will look nice with Tibetan, these prayer flags and an image, a statue of Lord Buddha. Next, please. This again, they're supposed to be the original Aryans and Ladakh, and the place village called Da. So they do not marry from outside their own community. There are some villages inhabited by these people, and they are different from Ladakhis. And we requested them then if you could come out with their traditional clothes, so I can get a picture. So I was with the army people, and the army people requested, I got it. This is again in Bodh Gaya. There's a museum there for Buddhists. I was lucky to see these two monks, the Buddhist monks. If they were not there, there was no picture. This was near Zojila Pass, coming from Dras. I crossed Zojila Pass, and weather turned bad there. It was very, very cold at that place, and Zojila, it was very tough to cross because of the mild snow falling there, and lots of puddles of water there. So it was, but I liked it in black and white. Next, please. These are, this I shot in Sangla Valley. They're all draped in their Kinnauri dresses. Kinnauri lakes, these caps are all green. Even men wear the same color, green caps. So as a souvenir, I also brought one green cap. And so they arrange for some dances for us. We photograph some dances also there. But I said, besides dance, let me have a group photograph. So this is that, one of those. They were not smiling. They were all very serious. So I said, how to put a smile on that? So I played a small trick. I said, very, very serious. I said, if Amitabh Bachchan comes, will you be again so serious? The moment they heard Amitabh Bachchan, they all smiled. My camera was ready. I just clicked that. Next, please. This is a very interesting picture. Before this panorama thing started with the digital, I had bought one fisheye lens of Mamiya RB67. And there's a little story behind this. One Japanese came to me. He was from the company Mamiya. And he knew that I was using Hasselblad as well as Mamiya RB67. So he said, I want your feedback about these two cameras that you use, Hasselblad as well as Mamiya. Then I gave him some suggestions about what I like more about Hasselblad as compared to RB67. So he liked the suggestions a lot. And I said, firstly, your lenses are too big. They're very bulky. And the Hasselblad lenses are more compact. Secondly, your film bags are very delicate. They're made of plastic. And if I drop them on the ground, they're liable to break. Whereas Hasselblad bags are made of steel, and they're very strong. And if it falls down, I won't have to worry. I can just lift it and start working. And I gave one or two suggestions like this. Then he said, anything you want from my company? I said, I like your fisheye lens very much, 55mm fisheye lens. He said, I said, it's very expensive at more like 10,000 rupees. This was about 20 years ago I'm talking about. So he said, if I give you 50% discount, will you take it? I said, I'll jump at it. Okay, then they say, okay, you get ready, make money for 55,000, and I'll give you that one. And as per his promise, within 15 days, that fisheye lens came to me. And this was taken with the fisheye. And you can see my small two tents there. One is my tent, the yellow one is my tent, and the other tent is of my sister at place called Tapovan. And left, you see Bhagirathi peaks, then you have Kharcha Kund, then you have Shivling, and then you have Meru. It is almost 180 degrees, which this lens covered. 180 degrees in one frame, and then I chopped off from the top and the lower area to make it a small panorama. And now it's very easy. You just put a tripod and rotate the thing, and then you get a panorama. But that was the way I worked with this fisheye lens to make a panorama. And I always remember, and it's that lens is so bulky, it is as heavy as the body, very heavy lens. So, next, please. This is another deity of in one of the monasteries there. I don't remember. I don't know the name of the deity. Next, please. This is a taken with the iPhone 7 on a flight from San Francisco to Seattle. My younger daughter lives in Bellevue, which is on the outskirts of Seattle. And we were invited by Mr. Michael Adams, son of Ansel Adams, to come and spend a day with them. He said, whenever you come to USA, come and visit us. So I asked my son-in-law, instead of going some other places, can we go to Carmel, where he lives, Ansel Adams? He said, sure, Papa, I'll arrange everything. We'll change our programs. So he canceled all the bookings which he had done for other places near Seattle. And then we took a flight from Seattle to San Francisco. And from there we hired a taxi car. He drives the car there. We hired a car, and then it was a 2.5 hour drive from San Francisco to Carmel, where Ansel Adams' son lives. He's also 85 plus now. And while coming back, I found these hills, these mountains. I was told they are extinct volcanoes, and that's nothing very much about it.
It's a very nice trip.
This is a statue in monastery called Thiksey, which is quite close to Leh, and everyone photographs this. So nothing much in this. Next, please. Good. Another deity. I don't know the name of this deity again.
Next time we will learn to.
Buddhas, maybe, I don't know. Could be Buddha, and maybe not. I'm not sure. Next, please. This is a panorama of about 8 or 9 frames. In winter, in January, I had gone with my friend, Mr. Shrikant Somani, owner of the Somani Tiles. Both of us went in winters, and we wanted to go to Khardungla, and beyond Khardungla, we wanted to go to a village called Turtuk, which is next to our border with Pakistan. And when we were going, we were about just on the outskirts of Leh. I shot this. At the bottom, you can see the airport of Leh, and in the backdrop, you have Sasar Kangri and all those. And again, it was mild snowfall was there in the morning, but when we left, the snowfall stopped, and I made this panorama. And it was rather cold, so it was taken with handheld only. I just took 8 or 9 pictures standing there. They didn't put a tripod there. Next, please. Somewhere in early 80s, one subsidiary airline of Indian Airlines, it was called Vayudoot, and they introduced for some time Himalaya Darshan, a flight called Himalaya Darshan, which was about 1 hour flight from Dehradun. They would take us to the high peaks near all these Garhwal peaks. Garhwal peaks you could see, and they'll come after one hour, come back to Dehradun. So this is Chowkhamba. And I got some very interesting shots. After that, it was a small plane, Dornier. Dornier, only about 8 or 10 people used to sit in that one. And the view that I got from that aircraft, I can never get again. It was in winters. The mountains were full of snow. And I shot some other peaks also. Nanda Devi was a unique picture that never seen like that before. From ground, you can never see that. Next, please. Mix of Himalayan, non-Himalayan. This is a dome in a temple called Ranakpur, near Udaipur. And I've been there several times. And I was told that the workmanship of this temple, Ranakpur, is superior to Dilwara temple. Although the material used in Dilwara temple is marble, white marble, very interesting, very beautiful. But the stone here used is inferior, the core material, but workmanship is much better. So I came down on ground and raised the camp. This is kind of an abstract picture coming back from a place called Tijara, where my friend Mr. Amarnath has a very beautiful property at Tijara Fort. And so when we were coming back, I saw one building, these pigeons. Yeah. This was a long time back. A place called Byawar, which is between Jaipur and Ajmer. And in winters, they have this harvest of chilies, and they were sorting out the chilies. I shot it with 35 millimeter as well as in my panorama, technorama.
80s.
And,
In the year 80s. 80s, in 80s.
huh?
In the year 80s.
80? It was early 80s. Yeah. No, it must have been. Yeah. This is surprisingly a place called Taj Mahal. There must be some, I think, Rajasthan ladies. And I looked at the ground. I liked the design pattern. And then I converted the whole thing in black and white. And then with a tool in Photoshop, I brought back their color in that. So to make the lady stand out against it. And I'm doing a book on the same theme. I'm calling it Islands of Color, in which the picture is black and white and certain things are standing out very well. And my very dear friend Akash Dar, the famous photographer, he has kindly agreed to give a foreword for that book. And we are calling it Islands of Color. So there are about 100 pictures selected out of my huge stock. So 100 pictures in which something of nice interest color will stand out against the black and white. For example, there's a picture of tigers. I put 2 or 3 pictures of tigers. Tigers are there in their natural skin. And the background, the jungle is all brown, black and white. So like that, I like this one. I made it make the color stand out. Next, please. This is near Jaisalmer. There's an artificial lake called Gadisar. So I went early morning to photograph the first rays of sun falling on that one. Sadly, the colors are not so bright in this one, but actually in the original Hasselblad slide, the colors were very bright, very interesting. Golden colors, they were absolutely golden. Next, please. There's a palace called Samod Palace, which has been converted into a hotel now. And when I got my Lenov Technorama 612 in 91, so I wanted to photograph with that camera and wanted to see how it looks, how it works out. So somebody suggested go to Samod. They have very nice interiors in that palace. So we went there and I spent a night there and I photographed that thing. Again, the colors are quite dull in this one, but the transparencies were, maybe the scanning is not so good there, and colors were fun. And next time I went, I took my wife also with me, and it was running as a hotel there. Now, of course, a very heritage property hotel, and very. This is a place called Sundarbans in West Bengal. Here, something happened with me, and I will remember that. I will remember that cold night. It was winters. I said I'll hire the whole boat. I won't take. Don't want to go share in a big boat. There are so many tourists. I said I want a full boat to myself. So they arranged a small boat for me, and I went there. And in the afternoon, they said, let's have lunch there. I said, okay, let's time for lunch. So we had lunch and finished. Then I said, let's go back now. He said, okay, yes, we'll start. If we leave now, by evening, we will be back in Sundar Jani, I don't remember the name. But suddenly the engine died there, and there was no way they could revive the engine. Then I said, my God, we're in the middle of this forest full of tigers and all that thing, and we are nowhere what to do. They said, don't worry, sir, you sleep. I said, what to sleep? I have no bedding, nothing, and not even full sleeve shirt. I'll feel so cold. And whole night I was shivering. And then what he did, he was a very, very smart chap. Whenever there was high tide, he would raise the anchor, and with the tide, he will go. And when the high tide would subside and low tide would, he would put an anchor so that there. After a few turns like that, we reached, and when the day broke at about 7:30 or so, we reached that place, and they said, now you have to walk 2 kilometers. Now we cannot get the high tide, low tide. Now you walk 2-3 kilometers. I said, okay. And that walk was also not dangerous, full of this mangrove forest. We don't know, never knew tiger will come from left side or right side. Anyway, so when we were there, I shot this picture. Next, please. These are sand dunes. I am very, very fond of photographing sand dunes. I made 2 trips only for sand dunes. And on one trip, I saw quite a few snakes in sand dunes. Then I told my assistant, I said, look, when I'm photographing, looking here and there, your duty will not be to look here and there. You just look around my nearby surrounding. There should be no snake there. And his name is Meherban Singh. Meherban was told just to keep a watch that there is no snake. And when there are no tourists, this place is full of snakes. Next, please. There's a beautiful small lake called Sambar Lake between Jaipur and Ajmer. There's a small village called Dudu on the way. And from Dudu, you have to turn right and drive about 20 or 30 kilometers. And Sambar Lake is known because when the rains fall and the water is collected there, and when the water is there, these flamingos come there in winter months. So we went there. I've been there twice. So just to photograph these flamingos. And there was no place. This was in Andaman Nicobar. I did my first. That was the first pictorial book on Andaman Nicobar Islands. In '87, I spent 3 months there. January, April, and December. Every time I stayed there for a month, and it had really not come on the tourism map then, and it could not find any taxis or something like that. But there was one guy was there. He was hiring the scooter. I said, can I hire the scooter? He said, yes. Then I hired a scooter. I used to drive a scooter in college, which I left in '64. After '64, I had not driven the scooter. So now, after '64, in 1987, after 23 years, I hired a scooter and started driving the scooter. I would stop the scooter, take a picture, roam around in Andaman Islands, wherever I could go. When the road was there, that was the way. And I asked the tourism department, can you give me a car? I have come I said, no, every photographer comes from India and from mainland, and he asks for a car. So we don't have any provision for giving a car. They thought that I'll be another wedding photographer. So this is sand dunes in Jaisalmer. I made several trips, 2 trips to Rajasthan.
Children.
This is Sarnath near Banaras. And I'd gone there for this Buddha Jayanti, which falls in the month of May, and is the warmest, hottest day. And this monk was sitting down, not in shade, in meditation, in that heat, in that sun. When I went to photograph these dunes, they were not these 2 main, Khuri and Sam. They are the 2 famous sand dunes near Jaisalmer, Khuri and Sam. But I took a taxi, and then I traveled all over wherever I could find sand dunes, because in those tourist places they were disturbed by the footprints. I wanted to photograph some sand dunes where there were no footprints. The original just the wind patterns were there, the breeze pattern. So this wind formation I wanted to photograph. So that's what we did. This is the place where the snakes were there. This is a place called Kitchen. When in winters, these demoiselle cranes come in thousands, and there's a kitchen society there which give them grain to eat, bajra, stuff like that. And what they do, they spend their winters here for about a month, and then they fly back. And the morning they are given the feed, and after that they fly away to different fields, far off places, and the evening they come back. So to spend the night in Kitchen. It's a real surprise that how they come from such a huge distance, and just at that small little village in Rajasthan, they bypass so many big water bodies. They don't stay there. They just come for this small little village, Kitchen. I don't know. Nobody knows why. Next, please. This is a place called Bhimbetka. It's near Bhopal. And in these caves, there are cave paintings there, and the original the inhabitants were must be Stone Age people. They have their paintings of elephants and
Pandavs ke time. Pandavs.
They say Pandavs used to stay there. Every time we go to some remote place, there's a regular story that Pandavs stayed there. That is a common thing. But I photographed a lot of these paintings, and it's a UNESCO heritage site. And you can see the caves there. This is another view of that Bhimbetka caves. And it's lots of tourists come there to see this weird formation, how our ancestors lived there as Stone Age people. Next, please. As I mentioned, this is in Nicobar, and I took a ship from Port Blair, and it was a 7-day trip. It went right up to the lowest portion of Andaman, and it came back. Basically, it was meant for local people, so they could travel on that ship from one island to the other. So at this place called the island called Katchal, 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 I saw this ship, this tree, praying mantis. It looks like a praying mantis there. So I walked up to this tree, and when I was going back, the ship was about to go. The horn was on. I was barely able to catch the ship, but I took this picture. Thank you. Next. This again in Port Blair. Thanks to my scooter, I was able to. No, this one I walked to this place called Corbin's Cove. The fishermen preparing for the day, and this was before I hired a scooter, and I walked 5 kilometers in the dark so that I could get the sunrise shot of those fishermen. Next, please. This is in a place called Las Vegas. It's very famous Las Vegas. And this was a hotel right next to the hotel where we were staying. I like the balconies and the abstract pattern. This is another abstract photograph. You have these cobwebs on these iron rods, and on top of these cobwebs, you have dewdrops. And again, in a bit of an abstract, somebody called it, they look like back of sheep, the backs of sheep. But in Andaman, when I went in 87, these tribals, they're called Jarvas, and they were hostile. And on every full moon night, the authorities used to send a ship there to give them some gifts, like red cloth. They have a preference for red cloth, some iron nails, and lots of bananas and coconuts. So what the government did, they took the ship, and after that the ship, they sent a small boat to that island where they were living, and these people used to come and on that boat and look around, play around on that ship, and with the staff, etc., take those gifts and then go back. So they would be on the ship for about 2 hours, and since they were not wearing anything, they were not wearing allowed, and they were not wearing anything, and so we all the people who went, I got this permission with great difficulty, because civilians were just not allowed. Only the Department of Anthropology, they were allowed to go. So I managed the permission. I went there. Here you see the boat there, and we had to go on the same term. We were also just going in underwear. We had to be in underwear to meet them. Otherwise, these are Jarvas. Now they are, I believe they have quite friendly now. They're not so hostile. Next, please. This is in Ahmedabad, in Gujarat. There's a mosque called Sayyid something, I'm name, and there are very beautiful patterns of Sayyid. This is called Sayyid Jali. Sayyid Mosque Jali. I
Forgetting the name.
Very beautiful geographical patterns, because in Islam there you can only have patterns of geography, and they're not, human beings are not painted or no sculptures. So only thing you can do is geography and nature. Next, please. This is in a place in Gujarat, near Ahmedabad. This village is called Sarkhej, and again there was a mosque there, and I photographed these. These they call it Jali there. So these Sarkhej Jalis are very famous, and against the white background sky, the pattern really stands out. Next, please. This is in Bandhavgarh. The moment the tiger came, we saw the tiger. Everybody raised their guns to shoot the tiger. I think more than tiger, for me, this was more interesting. The human interest, how they are engrossed there. So this is a place called
This
Bodh Gaya.
meeting is being recorded.
This is Bodh Gaya, where Lord Buddha is supposed to have gained enlightenment sitting under a peepal tree. And we were on a trip to Bihar. And when we spent a night here at Bodh Gaya, we were very lucky. I was traveling with my wife and then my daughter's in-laws. This is a tide in Goa, low high tide. I like the moss on the rocks. Next, please. This is Grand Canyon. Everyone shoots in color, but I liked it in black and white. trying to imitate my Guru Answer Adams with 100% black, 100% white, and in between the grays. Next, please. This is what it looks in color. Next, please. This is a sunrise I photographed in Bandhavgarh forest. And for me personally, forests and the environment there is equally interesting as compared to wildlife. And I find that in all these sanctuaries, people are so tiger-centric that if they don't see tiger, they have long faces. And I am very happy. I said, why are you you're not looking very cheerful? He said, we didn't see the tiger. I said, but I am so happy I saw such beautiful forest. I get equal thrill when I see a beautiful forest, the environment. I said, I'm so happy because I saw a lovely forest. He said, oh, for you it's different, but we came only for the tiger. So this is a very strange observation that if you don't see tiger, you're not happy. But they're not happy to see the beautiful forest, but they only want to see tigers. Next, please. This I shot in place Bellevue, where my daughter lives, from her house on 37th floor. And at sunset time, the clouds had become pink and moonrise was there. And just made it a very simple picture, nothing much. This was a building right in front of our house on 37th floor, where we're living in Bellevue. Glass and reflection of buildings on that thing. I found it as an abstract image. Next, please. This is in Bali, in Indonesia. And it was in the reception hotel, and the reception of the hotel. I like the decoration very much of this one of the, I think, the local sculptures and all. It made I requested the reception people, can I take a photograph? They said, yes, no harm, take it. So I shot this in the hotel. Next, please. In Bali, they have this performance of Ramayana at this place. And all the tourists, you can see some here, but there were tourists all around in a circle, and they were watching, they come to watch this performance of Ramayana. And you have Hanuman and this Rama and Sita, all those things. And it's a very interesting performance there to see how Ramayana is still performed there. This is a image I shot in Bellevue in US with my infrared cameras. So infrared has three main advantages for me. One, that all the haze that infrared camera cuts off, which you cannot cut in slide. Now the Photoshop, you can cut a lot of haze, but in infrared, it cuts the haze completely and it makes them clear. All the haze is no problem. Secondly, say this camera needs a lot of sun, which middle of the day, which is not a good time for landscapes. Landscapes are done early morning or late evening, but what to do in the daytime when landscapes are not happening? That is the time when my infrared camera are found very useful. And third, with black and white, one gets very interesting stark black and white effects. which we cannot get from conventional thing. So I had one camera. My son-in-law got me one camera. Then I went again in 2019. I got the second body also converted into infrared, so that in case something happens to my one body, then I should not be left without infrared. Now I shoot with both the cameras. Next, please. This again infrared, as I said. I shot this in Bandhavgarh. Those are green leaves. The green leaves, light green leaves, come out as pure white in infrared. And the sky darkens up and the sky is black. And it's a beautiful contrast in black and white. Next, please. See, there was a very famous American person, his programs I used to watch with great interest. Carl Sagan was his name, Carl Sagan. I remember his sentence. He wrote a very beautiful book on a pale blue planet, a pale blue dot, pale blue dot. Then he said in one of the programs, nature is neither kind nor harsh. It is just indifferent. So here you see a beautiful pine forest being finished by this wildfire. So when I shot this picture, I just remembered the sentence of Carl Sagan, nature is neither kind nor harsh. It is just indifferent. It doesn't care what happens, what it is doing. When the earthquake happens, so many people die, so many buildings collapse, so many people, so much problem. But nature doesn't care. It has been the way the Himalayas have happened. Himalayas or other mountains have faced millions of these kind of cloudbursts. But we are so saddened, we are so hurt by one cloudburst. Kedarnath tragedy, 2013. So many people died. Why they died? They had made their car parking lots, their habitation in river blades. Where river Mandakini was supposed to flow, they had made their places staying there. And when it came and when all the vehicles were watered down, went down in the river, people were very unhappy. Oh my God, nature is so cruel, nature is... You are playing with nature, you don't know where to... You don't expect the river to be flowing in a straight line all the time, all the year round. So many times these cloudbursts have happened. In millions of years, they have happened millions of times. So this is what it... as I said, my love for clouds. This is right taken from my house only, from the top of from my roof. Next, please. This is in Goa, and we were staying in Taj, and behind Taj there is this lake, beach, Candolim Beach, and I like this couple with their... This is the same beach. I went there early in the morning before the tourists come. So I took a tripod and gave a long explore of 30 seconds. And in that 30 seconds, you see the movement of the high tide. And I found this, my friend, one little friend there, to put her life into this thing. This is taken in Seattle, where my granddaughter is studying in Washington University. So we were waiting for the bus, and at that point I found that just next to me there was this fence of the garden, and I like this abstract pattern of this one. So incidentally, I may say that my granddaughter also takes beautiful pictures. This is a reflection of a building in another building. The reflection, building in a building. Next, please. This is in Bharatpur. These are green pigeons, yellow-footed green pigeons. And again, as usual, some places which are soft, which are not offering any hardship, I take my wife along. So, in What these pigeons? This is in Kerala, in Taj. We stayed in Taj. So while my wife was managing the reception, arranging the room, etc., I was sitting in the lobby, and I like this abstract pattern on top of on the roof. This fan with this roof. Next, please. This is in Ahmedabad. Is a cotton mill. This building is called Cotton Mill Owners, something like that, and it was designed by a very famous French architect who designed Chandigarh. I don't know how to pronounce the name, Le Corbusier, something like that.
We
I
went with
don't know his name. I don't know how to pronounce it in French. He designed this building, and anybody who comes to Ahmedabad, we were with a group of about 14 architects. I was the only non-architect. They agreed to take me. I said, I'm not an architect. He said, no, you come. You are a friend, all right. So I went them as a friend, me and my wife, and their interest was focused on all the buildings where architecture was of interest. So it was a very interesting trip. That I like the stairs thing. This is another building. I don't remember the name of this building. It was in Bhuj, I think. Probably it was in Bhuj, or I don't know.
Okay.
But I like the abstract design of this building. This again back in Bellevue, building right next opposite house where we are staying.
This.
It's a bit all glass. This I said was a flight from San Francisco to Seattle. I shot it with my iPhone.
Beautiful.
And these are extinct volcanoes there. And they said this is in San Francisco area. That area is a lot of danger of earthquakes there. A very big major earthquake came in early 1920s or something like that. So these are all dead volcanoes. This I've seen. Yeah, next. I think that's the end. Maybe. This I told you this about that term. This is another one taken from my daughter's house that done with the infrared. You can see the typical infrared. This I shot in Sweden. We are going around the place, so in a park. I like this contrast of green and red. Stockholm was the Stockholm, really.
Yeah.
It was in Stockholm in Sweden.
Yes.
See, in this building where we stayed in my daughter's house, at about on 16th floor, there's a garden on 16th floor. So every evening we used to go and walk in the garden. There were beautiful flowers, etc. going. So in one evening, I saw sun rays coming on this building. I like that weird light on the building. This is in San Francisco. When it's about to descend to the San Francisco airport, on the right hand side, we found these very interesting patterns of water bodies. Same thing, you see this road there. You can see a lot of traffic on the road, and taken from the aircraft with iPhone. This again in San Francisco. The people who are staying in the hotel, they were admiring this. This is all Pacific Ocean.
Yes.
I like the formation of this tree and these three guys sitting under that.
We stayed there.
Again taken from the hotel on the you can see the San Francisco airport there.
Yes.
I like the clouds in the morning, early morning, with the reflection. This is Michael Adams, son of Ansel Adams, and I've done a book on Ansel Adams, black and white photographs, imagining if Ansel Adams was in Himalayas, what kind of pictures he would take. So I did that book and I sent one book to him. He was very happy to see that. He said, "Okay, somebody across the globe would think of my father and do a book like this and dedicate it to him." And then he wrote a letter that if you come to California, come and spend a day with us. So it so happened that we went there and we were there, and then he showed us his father's dark room and where he used to work. You can see some pictures of Ansel Adams there in the backdrop. So I was really fortunate to see the way Ansel Adams worked in his dark room, his chemicals, his trays, his enlarger. And I told my wife, this is something, nothing less than a pilgrimage for me to see how that guru of gurus, the world famous Ansel Adams, how he worked, where he worked. That was much more than education. I don't have proper words to show my gratitude how I was able to. And he was so friendly, so nice to us. He and his wife, both of us, were such wonderful people. He's not a photographer, he's a doctor. He's a doctor. He said he has kept everything as Ansel Adams has left in his house, his living room and everything. Because so many tourists like me, they want to see where Ansel Adams worked. And he doesn't allow everyone to come. They have to take an appointment with him so that whom he would scan and filter whom to come and who is allowed, who is not allowed. Fortunately, I was selected because maybe I had done a book on his father. So very nice people, very nice. Next, please. This is the living room of Ansel Adams. This is where we spent a day here. And you can see Ansel Adams' famous pictures. This is where he used to live. Now, how can I describe my happiness on seeing this thing and being here? This I photograph in his house. And there's in his garden. This is in the hotel where we were staying. So many planes were coming. So many planes were coming to airport, coming. So I photographed one with a curtain.
It was a wonderful sight.
Next, please.
Yeah, we are done, sir.
Yeah.
Okay.
So thank you, Mrs. and Mr. Ashok.
I have to thank you, sir. You don't have to thank me. I have to thank you.
No. You are so humble. We cannot.
I should be thanking you.
And you are Dilli wali to bahut dil wale hain. So your entire saga and pilgrimage is beyond anything, and virtually we have seen, but we have felt as if we are living there. We have lived there, all of us.
Thank you, sir. Thank you.
Highly grateful to you. And now I will request Mr. Saurabh Kunti to search for any questions
So,
regarding this event and kindly pose them to Dilwaleji.
yes, sir.
Saurabh?
Most welcome.
Hello, sir. Good evening, sir.
Yeah.
So we have a lot of praise for sir as usual. Even last time, a majority of the comments were just saying "Wow, amazing pictures," etc., etc. But we have one question. Besides the enormous interest that you have in photography, what motivated you to write dozens of books, dozens of great books?
What motivated you to do the books?
Oh, yes. You see, when I started trekking in 1979, which was pretty late, I happened to see one book by Roland Michaud titled Afghanistan. It was published by Thames and Hudson. I saw it in my library in IIC, library in Delhi. So his address was not mentioned where Mr. Michaud lives. So I sent a letter to the publishers, London, Thames and Hudson, that I have seen this book and I would like to know what equipment this gentleman has used, this Mr. and Mrs. Mishop. So I never got any reply. After about more than 1 year, I got a phone call at my house. I said, he said, you wrote a letter to Thames and Hudson. Say you're the same person. I said, yes, I'm the same person. He said, I'm Roland Mishra speaking, and I'm staying nearby, very near your house. I'm staying in Golf Links. So if you want to come and meet me, you can come. So I wrote a letter wanting to know what equipment he was using. So I went to see him, and we became very good friends. Then he asked for some help that if I could arrange some
Dances.
Kathak dancers dressed in traditional dance, and they should sit in Red Fort before dark. They should get before sunrise. They should be all decked up, decorated with the makeup, and then when the sun comes, the first rise of the sun comes, he wants to photograph that sitting in a window. He would come in some National Geographic assignment. He used to do that hi-fi work. So after that, I arranged for that. Birju Maharaj was that famous dancer. He was very kind. He helped me in all that thing. And then we became very good friends with Mishos. And then he asked me, what do you do? I said, sir, I have a studio. I do studio portraiture. Then, then I do go for trekking also sometimes. He said, where do you go for trekking? I said, sir, I go to Garhwal, Kumaon, Himachal, Kashmir. He said, don't do all that. Stop. Just go to one area. Just select one area and just go to that place again and again and again. So I selected Garhwal. He said, select one area which is not so well done, like Nepal. Don't do that. So I chose Garhwal and made several trips. And at the end of the day, according to his advice, I was able to turn out 4 books on that area: Ganga, Badri Kedar Yatra, Garhwal Himalayas, and Garhwal Kumaon. So that was my advice I got. After seeing his book, I was inspired. He has done fabulous work on Afghanistan and so many other things. Beautiful. He just died recently, about 6 months ago. He was living in Paris, a Frenchman, great photographer. Yes, next.
Thank you, sir. We have another question. Who do you think one of the best landscape photographers, specifically for Himalaya, are? Your best landscape photographers for Himalayas in India?
Who do you think is,
Whom I have liked.
who you like as a best landscape photographer of Himalayas?
Well, there was one photographer, Italian photographer. His name was Sella. He came in, he was even elder to Ansel Adams. He came to India in around 1900 something like that. His work is unparalleled. I have liked, I don't remember his first name. I have his book, Sella, Antonio Sella or something like that. His work has been my great inspiration on Himalayas. Then secondly, I have been really greatly inspired by Swami Pranavanand, who went to Kailash Mansarovar more than 20 times, and he spent more than 20 winters in Kailash Mansarovar. And I have his book. It's a rare book now. It's not available so easily, Kailash Mansarovar. And in that, he has gone to Kailash Mansarovar from all possible routes, and he has given some pictures there. He is a great inspiration for me. Then
Yes, sir. Thank you so much. I think that's it, sir. Everything else is just praise for your work. Everybody is very, very happy. Uh, yeah, I think that's it, sir. Over to
No,
Sharma, sir.
Saurabh, someone asked about his equipment, what he uses. So that-
Equipment. My bad. I'm really sorry.
sorry.
someone asked what equipment he uses.
Yes, sir. Yeah, so Nature's Dose would like to know about the cameras and accessories you use.
Camera, in film era, I was using Nikon equipment. FE2 was my favorite camera. Started with the Nikon F2. Then I switched over to, that was a total manual camera. Then after that, I switched to FE2, and I used always aperture priority. And I used to take 3 lenses with that, which I carry just those 3 lenses. In digital also, 100 to 400, then extreme wide from 17 to 35, and one, not the standard 50 millimeter, but something like 24 to 120 or 24 to 105. These 3 lenses I carry. And then another bag. Now I don't trek. I used to trek, and I used to carry one porter only for carrying the camera equipment and tent and food. 2 porters I used to carry. Now I go in my car whenever I go. So I have these three things in my camera, along with the infrared camera, and then another bag is there which are which I might need, something like fisheye lens. At some scene may demand fisheye lens, sometime mirror lens, 300 millimeter mirror lens. Then I have a TNS, tilt and shift lenses of Canon. Those lenses I carry as a standby, which are not for almost every picture doesn't demand those lenses. Most of the pictures, 90% of pictures, 99% are done with the 3 lenses, and of course some filters, neutral density filters.
Thank you, sir. We have another question from Anil Boda. Please tell any suggestions for upcoming photographers.
Suggestion.
I am myself one. Well, when I started in 71, there was no internet. All the source for us was the only source for us was to subscribe to various expensive magazines, buy expensive books. But now internet is our main guru. We can see what is the most important thing in photography as a landscape photographer. It's just one thing in my opinion. It's inspiration. We bought the books for magazines for inspiration. Today, all the inspiration is possible from internet. We can see the work of great photographers, and that is the inspiration. Second thing, which I'm missing now, really missing, is criticism. There's no point in just shooting pictures without criticism. My father was a very harsh critic. He seldom liked any picture of mine. One day I came back from Rupkund after 10 days trek. I said, Father, would you like to select 1 or 2 pictures for my book on Garhwal Himalayas? He went through the thing. He said, I don't like any. I said, you mean to say I have to do 10 days trek again, that killing trek? He said, why not? That was him. That was the way to learn. Harsh, not harsh, but I have not used the word harsh. Very objective criticism of your work. That is the only way to learn. One should not get offended by criticism, which I used to get sometimes from my father. But today I find only people are finding some good points, but I need some bad points in my photograph. How it could have been better. How can I improve? What is wrong with this picture? How it could have improved? Where am I going wrong? So to young people, my only advice will be to find that kind of a mentor who will have time and interest in you to guide you, to tell you where you have gone wrong, how it could have been better. It's very difficult to find that. And people who know, they have no time or interest to tell you. They like to, I should not say that, but people like to hide their skill. They are not open. This is my experience. They are not open to guiding people. But some are, who are willing to teach, find that person, or study the pictures of great photographers. That itself is a big education. For me, my main inspiration has been Ansel Adams. always I buy his books whenever possible and keep looking through his pictures. From time to time, I keep looking at his pictures. One thing what has inspired me lately, he used to get offended when people said that your pictures are showing good scenery. He says, scenery is a bad word for me. It is a word for travel agents who want to make profit from sceneries. I'm a nature photographer. I don't look for sceneries to sell. I concentrate on nature. What is nature? There is no rule of third in his photographs. He said there are no rules for good photographs. There are just good photographs. That is what he said. So we have to not go by sceneries or good sceneries. Let's concentrate on Mother Nature. For example, birds. All the concentration is just to count the number of feathers. How many feathers you got? What kind of feathers you got? It's the spirit of the bird that you have to catch. Whether it's in flight or some action or something like that. Something other than just feathers. For wildlife, same thing goes for wildlife. Close-ups, passports of tigers. Yawning, doing this. We don't need passports and portraits of tigers. We need the ambience where he lives. I have my favorite sentence for tigers. Instead of 500, use 50 millimeters. Eliminate that 0 on the right. Instead of 500, make 50. With that, you catch the ambience of that spirit of that tiger, or spirit of the animal comes out when you are doing it with the ambience. Otherwise, they end up in zoo shots, close-ups, portraits, passports. No. Next.
Thank you, sir. That's actually very good advice for young photographers like me. Another question, sir.
So-
What are the best 3 books which you like in photography? Best 3 photography books which you like?
For absolute beginners, when I started, my first camera I got from my father was in 1952, when I was 8 years old.
Books.
And after that, he gave me one book later on, after 52 or 55, 56, how to make good pictures by Kodak. Then it used to cost 5 rupees. Then I calculated according to inflation, that book would be 400 rupees now. How to take good pictures. I don't know if it is still available. That was my first Bible. I've just written my autobiography, which I'm going to print very soon. Autography, anecdotes, interesting things, as you saw in that Lens and Passion. But this will be much more than life and Lens and Passion, other things, photographic life. So that was one first book. To begin, total beginners, they should read books. If they are using a smartphone, read the manual of that thing. How to use. Many people are using the smartphone without knowing what are the fine points in that camera. It's all automatic. They could shoot, but how to shoot manually, how to get depth of field, how to use apertures in that phone. I'm only talking about amateurs. You're all very, very experienced people, but get familiar with that camera, with the manual.
Book.
Then for me, I have great admiration for Ansel Adams. Then Elliot Porter. Elliot Porter is my second favorite author. And then another third photographer whose work I really admire, Bradford Washburn, American photographer. He was same age as Ansel Adams. If you can manage to see his pictures on internet or his books, Bradford Washburn was his surname, and outstanding that work.
And what about the recent books?
Ansel Adams, all the books on Ansel.
No, like digital.
Ansel Adams, and another great photographer I've seen today, contemporary. He's also a chartered accountant. He's also an accountant like me. Salgado is what's his
Sebastian Salgado.
Yes, excellent. But what facilities he's got? 90% of the pictures are taken with helicopters. We cannot even dream of those facilities that he's got. But his work is outstanding. Despite those fantastic, even if I get the helicopter, I will not be able to take those kinds of pictures.
Thank you so much, sir. I think that's it. We're done with all the questions. Thank you so much, sir.
Thank you, sir. Thank you.
So thank you, Saurabh. Thank you, Aditya. And thank you, Dilwarji, once again. I will hand it over to Satyaprasad sir for his final concluding comments and his respects to you. Over to you, Satya sir.
Thank you.
Thank you, Ashok sir.
Thank you, sir.
It's really a pleasure and a privilege seeing and listening to you and seeing your images. And it was truly inspiring for all of us. So those who are fortunate to witness, especially live, is truly inspiring. And some of the quotes, some of the things you said, it is mind-blowing. The kind of dedication and clarity of your thought. And for such a long time, some people, they do photography for 5 years and they'll give it up. But doing it continuously for 40 years or 50 years is really, really appreciate. And we are, Telangana Photography Society, we are really privileged to host you twice in successive months. And it was really great opportunity for us to, what can I talk about your photographs, sir? Who am I to talk about your photographs? And
Thank
your
you.
images are speaking themselves. So there is nothing I can talk about your images. You just see them and enjoy them and absorb them and study them. So all these things, when you're showing them, and the phenomenal memory, what you have about each image, where you shot and what, when, where. So that was something unique, and we as a photographers always should develop. When did we shoot that image? You should keep it in your mind. And it was a truly, inspiring and session, sir. And in future, we are looking forward to more sessions from you whenever the time permits, whenever.
At your disposal, sir. Anytime. Great honor for me.
And thanks, madam, also for being so supportive. And it was really thanks, ma'am. It was really supportive and it's wonderful. And I can say that because of you, Ashok sir has done a lot of
Yes,
work.
correct.
So, yeah.
Correct. Absolutely correct.
So because of it, thank you, ma'am. And your contribution is also equally important for the photography. And you are the person who, one of the persons who inspired me to do Himalayas. So thank you very much. And we had a great session, sir. Thank you. And thank you, Aditya. Thank you, Saurabh, for doing
you.
wonderfully seamless work. And it was, thanks
Great.
a lot and have a great evening, sir. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.